watching the AT&T U-verse Bracket Preview Show with Steve Overmeyer and John Rothstein.
And we're going to turn our attention now to the West region and some really intriguing matchups. Steve Overmeyer here alongside CBS College Basketball Insider John Rothstein and the AT&T U-verse Bracket Preview Show. And John, let's start things off with Wisconsin, who won their way to a top seed. What is the likelihood that Frank Kaminsky leads them back to the Final Four?
Very likely. Wisconsin is the favorite in the West region, even though Arizona is a very strong 2 seed. But the big difference with the Badgers this year versus last, Steve, the emergence of sophomore forward Nigel Hayes. One season ago, Nigel Hayes did not attempt a single three-point shot. This season, he's made 38 triples, shooting 40% from deep.
You can shoot three-pointers. You can get on a roll. Let's take a look at the top half of the West region and maybe here with Oregon. Can they rebound from Arizona completely dismantling them in the Pac-12 championship?
No, I think they can. For those who haven't watched Oregon this season, you want to put Joseph Young in bold print. Pac-12 Player of the Year, high-volume scorer like Oregon over Oklahoma State. And then if Wofford was playing anybody else other than Arkansas, I would give the Terriers a chance to advance. But Arkansas, a bad matchup there. And also, people are going to look at Harvard and say, well, the Crimson have won games in back-to-back years in the NCAA tournament. They have a chance against Carolina. Aerosmith wrote a song about that. It was called Dream On.
Oh, come on.
No shot that Harvard beats Carolina. Harvard is not the same offensive team this season as it was the past 2 seasons. Tommy Amaker has gone with a more power approach on defense, and the key ingredient that Harvard is missing that it had the last 2 years is Laurent Rivard. Laurent Rivard made 83-point shots in each of the past 2 seasons. Harvard has not really replaced him as an outside threat. Corbin Miller has done an admirable job attempting to fill in, but I like the Tar Heels in that one.
But Harvard did start the season as a ranked squad.
They did. It doesn't mean it was right.
Okay. All right. But and at the same time, too, we never really know which Tar Heels team we're going to see out there. This is a team that can go into a bit of a stretch of funks at some time.
It definitely can, and I don't think this is a vintage North Carolina team in terms of NBA talent like we've seen in the past under Roy Williams, but North Carolina is playing better basketball than it had at the start of the season. I think, one of the things we're really starting to see is that Carolina's a better basketball team when Marcus Page is off the ball. Carolina sometimes has their offense get a little stagnant when Page is at the point, but thanks to Joel Berry and Nate Britt, 2 point guards who have allowed Page to slide more to the wing, Carolina's been better the last month of the season.
You brought up Arkansas. I want to talk about these guys because they do have the SEC Player of the Year. How important is it for them to have Portis play at that level?
Well, 20 years ago, Arkansas was one of the top 4 or 5 programs in college basketball. The Razorbacks won a national championship in 1994. They lost to UCLA in the national title game in 1995. In addition to Bobby Portis, the SEC Player of the Year, the player for Arkansas that could be an absolute star in this tournament is Michael Qualls, a highlight reel waiting to happen. 6'5", can probably touch the top of the backboard. He's somebody who could make a lot of highlight shows in this NCAA tournament.
And you mentioned Joseph Young as well. It seems like this portion of the bracket is full of scores.
It's full of scores, but again, everything goes through Wisconsin. I think as long as Wisconsin can continue to get what they've gotten out of Bronson Koenig at point guard, who was terrific in the Big Ten title game against Michigan State, I like the Badgers to march on through this region and get to an Elite Eight.
All right, we're going to take a look at the bottom half of the bracket in just a minute. We're going to be taking a break here, but we're also going to find out if you find many surprises, though, in the bottom half of the Western bracket. This is the AT&T U-verse Bracket Preview Show.
The AT&T U-verse Bracket Preview Show is sponsored by AT&T U-verse. The U-verse revolves around you. Call 1-800-PICK-ATT.
All right, listen up. We still got a lot of game. Keep the energy up. We need that effort. I'm chip at a time and chip away. They're not that good.
Come on, concentrate. Play your own game. Block everything.
Win this thing. Pick it up. Get on it. You got 3 minutes. We're going to run. We can shut them down.
Dad, just pick one already.
When you have this many channels with your favorite sports, the U-verse revolves around you.
Welcome back to the AT&T U-verse Bracket Preview Show. Steve Overmeyer, John Rothstein, looking at the bottom half of the Western bracket. And Xavier, a 6 seed. Some people surprised to see them as a 6 seed, though. Are they vulnerable to be upset by an Ole Miss team that looked pretty good in their comeback route in the play-in game, the first 4
games. I took Ole Miss to beat Xavier. I loved what Ole Miss showed on the perimeter last night in crunch time. The one player on Ole Miss that you have to give a lot of credit is Jarvis Summers, one of the more underrated players in the SEC over the past couple of years. Ole Miss is a team, I think, that can win another game. But the team to watch in the bottom half of this region is Baylor. Baylor is a team that, again, did not probably have the conference record that would make them jump out because they played in the Big 12. The only team this year to win at Iowa State. And then you have Arizona at the bottom of the bracket, fresh off that big run in the Pac-12 tournament.
Baylor is a defensive juggernaut. How does that translate in the tournament?
Well, I think if Baylor and Arizona manage to play in the Sweet 16, I think Arizona could have a lot of issues with that matchup. I think back to Arizona's game against Oregon State in January when Oregon State had every defender on their team with a foot in the paint and forced the Wildcats to go over the top of their defense and make shots from the outside. This Arizona team is not as good offensively as it was a year ago when it had Nick Johnson. I think if Arizona sees Baylor, that could maybe ruin people's plans of that Wisconsin-Arizona regional final.
You know, a game I think a lot of people are overlooking is that VCU-Ohio State game. I almost feel like you can never count out a Shaka Smart team, but then Ohio State is another squad that can get hot as well.
Well, Ohio State, too, has the perimeter that's needed to break VCU's pressure. And anytime you're looking to play against VCU in a tournament-type setting, you're looking at a situation where you have to have capable ball handlers that can advance the basketball and then make plays on the fly. For people who haven't seen Ohio State this year, they don't just have one capable ball handler in Shannon Scott, their point guard. They have maybe the best guard in college basketball in D'Angelo Russell, a talented lefty who, again, had a triple-double in one game this year. So I think Ohio State's suited to handle VCU's pressure.
But is he the kind of guy that can break that press?
Well, he definitely can, but also when you look at Ohio State, they have been at their best this year when they've played smaller with Mark Loving at power forward. And then if you have a smaller guy at your power forward position, you're going to be in a situation where you can make plays really when things are getting going in traffic a little bit better. Because think about it. If you have a 3-man who's playing a 4 and he gets a pass when you're trying to break a press, it's easier to do than when you have a traditional big man up front who's more of a plotter.
A little bit more scoring that way, but a lot of people are pointing towards Arizona as well. Why is this such a big tournament for Sean Miller?
Well, Sean Miller is the best coach in college basketball that has never reached the Final Four. I remember I was in Tucson a year ago before the start of the season, before they lost to Wisconsin by 1 in overtime in the regional final, and I asked him, how often do you think about going to a Final Four? And he just looked at me and said, probably every 10 or 15 minutes. I bet it was a little bit more than every 10 or 15 minutes after they went through another season and lost in a regional final. And think about how close Sean Miller has been to going to a Final Four. 2008 at Xavier, okay, he gets blown out by Ben Howland and UCLA when they had Kevin Love and all those guys. Then in 2011, Jamel Horn misses a shot against UConn when Arizona was only down 2. If he hits that 3-point shot, Arizona goes to the Final Four. And then last year, Arizona loses by 1 point in overtime against Wisconsin. So Sean Miller is literally 2 possessions away from going to multiple Final Fours, but those possessions obviously did not go in his favor.
And this year, they'll have to go through your favorite, Baylor, of the lower half of the region, and then, of course, Wisconsin as well. This is going to be a tough bracket for Arizona to get to the Final Four.
A real tough bracket. And again, I don't want to talk badly about a conference, but the Pac-12 was not one of the better conferences in college basketball. Now, Arizona can't control that, but you look at the second and third place teams in this conference. Oregon was more, to me, a result of Dana Altman doing a tremendous coaching job this year than it was of them being a juggernaut. And Utah, who looked terrific at the start of the season, lost late in the year at Washington, who's not an NCAA tournament team, and also lost to Oregon in the Pac-12 tournament. So you start to ask yourself, who is Arizona really beating up on? If they see Baylor in the Sweet 16, like I think they will and I hope they will, it's going to be a tall, tall order for the Wildcats.
Boy, and I wish I had more time to talk to you about the Chanticleers of Coastal Carolina, but we just ran out of time.
Warren Gillis, a strong lefty guard who, has gotten into the paint, did a great job in their conference tournament. Also, Siobhan Wiggins is another guy who can break it down off the bounce. The only problem for them is they're playing a team that I think is going to be able to make a couple of shots.
You've watched every team in the tournament multiple times.
It's a labor of love. Some people have certain addictions that, aren't the best for them. I have college basketball.
That's why you're sitting here. He's John Rothstein. I'm Steve Overmeyer. Thanks for watching the AT&T U-verse Bracket Preview Show.
AT&T UVerse Bracket Preview Show is sponsored by AT&T UVerse. The UVerse revolves around you. Call 1-800-PICK-ATT.
You have got to be kidding me! Unbelievable! The greatest upset in NCAA March Madness history. Who could have predicted this?
Never miss a moment with UVerse Live TV on the go.